She was born Alexandra or Anastasia Lisowska in the rolling stones of Ruthenia, a quiet village tucked between icy rivers and dense forest. Life was simple, predictable, and safe until it ended in a single day. Tartar raiders swept through her village like a storm. Homes were burnt, families torn apart, and screams filled the winter air. The world she knew disappeared before her eyes. Alexandra, only a young girl, was captured and sold into slavery, bound for the distant Ottoman Empire. Most girls in her position would vanish into history, their names forgotten. But Alexandria, who would later be known as Hurrem, was not most girls. She observed, she learned, she adapted. Every glance, every whisper, every gesture in the palace became a lesson. In that cold alien world, she discovered the first rule of survival. To endure, you must understand the currents before you attempt to stir them. And so the seeds of a hurricane was planted, silent, patient, but unstoppable. The harem was a world of whispers and shadows, a kingdom within the empire where beauty alone was not enough. Hundreds of young women, each trained in ethic, music, language, and dance, competed silently for the Sultan's attention. Power was invincible here. A single glance, a favor, a whispered secret could determine life or death. Alexandra, now learning the customs of her new home, observed everything. She memorized the hierarchy of the harem, the unspoken rules that governed the relationships of women, eunuchs, and servants. She watched how subtle gestures could earn favors, how alliances were formed over a shared secret, and how rivals plotted in the quiet corners of gilded rooms. Unlike many who sought immediate attention, Hurrem did not rush. She listened more than she spoke. She smiled when necessary, remained calm in tense situations, and discovered the most important truth of all. The Sultan's favor was not just won by beauty, but by intelligence, patience, and understanding the currents of the palace. And then Suleiman noticed her. Not for the first time in history did the Sultan's gaze fall upon a girl with such presence, such quiet command. She was unlike the others, poised yet unassuming, clever yet humble. And in that glance, the first spark of a partnership was ignited. One that would change the empire forever. Where Nobano and Safi built influence in secret, Hurrem's rise will be bold, public, and unprecedented. She was learning the rules, but she intended to rewrite them. In the Ottoman harem, every step was a game of life and death. To survive, a woman needed more than beauty. She needed brains, patience, and a strategy that could outwit centuries of tradition. Hurrem had captured Suleiman's attention. Yes, but attention alone was not enough. The rules of the palace was ironclad. She was still a slave in the Sultan's eyes. A concubine could charm, could influence, but could never marry legally. And so Suleiman took the unprecedented step. He purchased her freedom. The court was shocked. Never before had the Sultan taken a concubine, legally freed her, and prepared to elevate her above centuries of harem tradition. This was not just an act of personal affection, it was a political earthquake. Palace officials whispered, "What audacity! A slave will be his wife." Eunuchs looked uneasy. Rival concubines tightened their alliances, eyes dark with envy and fear. Hurrem understood the stakes. Her freedom meant she could now step into the realm of legal influence, but it also pointed a target at her back. Every decision, every movement could be twisted into a reason for her downfall. And yet, she was ready, with intelligence honed by years of observation, patience forged in exile, and courage that defied centuries of convention. She approached Suleiman's court with a strategy unlike any woman before her. She used her freedom to negotiate her position. She aligned herself with influential eunuchs, whispered advice to the Sultan, and cultivated subtle support among palace officials. Rival concubines saw her rise, but no one could predict how far she would go. The ultimate act came when Suleiman formally married her, defying centuries of harem precedents. This was not only a personal union, it was a declaration of power, a challenge to tradition, and a signal that Hurrem was no longer just a concubine. She had transformed from a captive girl into the Sultan's legal wife. Legally recognized, publicly powerful, and capable of shaping not just the harem, but the empire itself. In one bold, calculated move, Hurrem redefined what a woman could be in the Ottoman court. Where others whispered in shadows, she would now command the light. Hurrem Sultan, once a captive girl from Mauritania, had transformed her life. She was no longer just a concubine. She had become Suleiman's legal wife. And now her most potent weapon was about to emerge: motherhood. In the Ottoman Empire, children were not just heirs, they were the future of dynasties, and in the hands of the wrong mother, they could be a liability. But Hurrem understood this better than anyone. She bore Suleiman multiple children, including Prince Mehmed, Prince Selim, the future Selim II, and Prince Bayezid, along with daughters who would later form strategic alliances. Each child was a calculated investment in her political empire. But power was never simple. Her main rival was Prince Mustafa, Suleiman's eldest son. Born to Mahidevran Sultan, Mustafa was beloved by the Janissaries, the elite troops, and popular among the provincial governors. To secure the throne for her own sons, Hurrem had to neutralize the strongest claim to the empire. She did not act openly. She worked behind the scene, gathering alliances, influential eunuchs, palace officials, and local loyal visas. Whispers and rumors were her instruments, and slowly she stripped the Sultan's perception of Mustafa, a perception that would seal his fate. The turning point came on October 6, 1553. Prince Mustafa was executed on the orders of Sultan Suleiman. The court was in shock. The Janissaries were uneasy. Mahidevran faction was taunt, and Hurrem's sons, now saved from their greatest rival, were positioned for succession. It was a calculated victory, born from years of careful observation, patient alliances, and bold strategy. Motherhood had become her tool for empire building. Every lesson she taught her sons, every alliance she nurtured, every interaction in the palace, all were steps towards consolidating power. Where other Ottoman women operated in the shadows, Hurrem's influence was visible, deliberate, and unstoppable. She guided her children, groomed their minds, and prepared them to survive the deadly game of succession. By the time Suleiman grew older, the palace, once a labyrinth of threats and rivals, had become her domain. Hurrem Sultan had turned motherhood into a weapon of strategy, ensuring that her bloodline would not only survive but shape the empire for generations to come. From captive girl to legal wife to mother of heirs, Hurrem's intelligence, patience, and audacity had made her the unseen architect of the Ottoman future. Even after the execution of Prince Mustafa in 1553, Hurrem Sultan's path was far from safe. The Ottoman court was a living battlefield where power was measured in whispers, glances, and hidden alliances. Every day brought potential threats from rival concubines, ambitious eunuchs, and scheming visas. Her fierce rival remained Mahidevran Sultan, mother of the late Mustafa. Mahidevran had lost her son, but she had influence among the Janissaries, and her faction was still strong in the province. Hurrem knew that if she underestimated Mahidevran, her son's claim to the throne could be in jeopardy. Hurrem acted in precision. She strengthened her alliances with the palace, trusted eunuchs, provided intelligence about Mahidevran's plot, loyal visas supported her son's education and appointment. European diplomats treated her as a power broker, sending messages that subtly elevated her prestige. She did not stop at influence. Hurrem used the harem itself as a stage of power. Rival concubines were carefully observed, their alliances broken before they could threaten her. Those who opposed her were quietly sidelined, reassigned, or marginalized. Through patience and calculation, she made the harem her instrument, a network loyal to her and her children. By the mid-1550s, her power was undeniable. She was not just Suleiman's wife, she had become the center of court politics. Advisors, generals, and officials consulted her. Her sons were carefully groomed for leadership. Her daughters were married strategically to solidify alliances. Every move was calculated, every word measured. The greatest proof of her mastery came in 1555 when she skillfully neutralized Mahidevran's lingering influence over the Janissaries using intelligent networks and palace alliances. Hurrem ensured that loyalty shifted firmly towards her faction. From this point on, the palace recognized Hurrem Sultan was the unchallenged force behind Suleiman's throne. By the 1560s, Suleiman the Magnificent has ruled for over 4 decades. The empire was at its peak, vast, prosperous, and formidable. Yet, behind the grandeur of the throne, a quiet storm shaped the course of history. Hurrem Sultan. Even in Suleiman's final years, Hurrem remained a master of court politics. Her influence extended far beyond the harem. She guided appointments, advised on military campaigns, and even corresponded with foreign powers. Her son was educated, prepared, and protected, their positions carefully solidified within the empire's complex hierarchy. The greatest challenge of this period was ensuring that her chosen heir Selim would succeed Suleiman. Prince Bayezid had his own ambitions, and rival factions within the palace remained restless. Once again, Hurrem's intelligence and strategy became decisive. Historical accounts note that she carefully managed the rivalry between her sons. She maintained correspondence within officials, ensured loyalty among the Janissaries, and subtly influenced her husband's decision, all while maintaining her public image as a devoted mother and wife. Her work was delicate. Any misstep could have endangered Selim's future, or worse, brought ruin upon herself. In 1566, Suleiman passed away during the campaign of Zigsvita. His death marked the end of an era, but Hurrem's influence did not end with his life. Selim II ascended the throne, and the foundation she had meticulously laid ensured that her legacy continued. The woman who had arrived as a slave rose to become a legal wife and maneuvered through decades of palace intrigue, had redefined what it meant to wield power in the Ottoman court. Hurrem Sultan lived longer than many could have imagined, navigating the perilous water of the Ottoman court with skill, intelligence, and unshakable resolve. Even after Suleiman's death in 1566, her presence continued to shape the empire and her family's future. By this time, her son, Selim II, had ascended the throne. Hurrem, now an elder stateswoman of the harem, wielded enormous influence behind the throne, guiding her son's early reign through counsel and careful management of palace factions. Hurrem's later years were also a time of reflection and consolidation. She maintained careful control over palace functions, ensuring her daughter's marriage with strengthened alliances and her son's positions remained secured. Even in her final days, she was regarded as the unrivaled matriarch of the empire. Hurrem died in 1558 to 1559. Historical sources vary, but the empire she helped shape lived on. She had transformed the role of women in the Ottoman court, proving that intelligence, strategy, and courage could rival even the mightiest sultan.